G'day friends, it's Blister Guy, and there are nerfs. So patch 25.0.3, I believe, has just come out for Hearthstone with nerfs finally to Sire Denathrius and to Shockspitter, of all things. So Shockspitter, of course, I've mentioned previously, it looks like it's a bit of a standout combo card. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Sire Denathrius, it's been in people's sights for quite some time. And I think ideally what the Hearthstone team would have liked for Sire Denathrius was for it to be a marquee card through the murder of Castle Nathria metagame, and then for it to not be quite as relevant now. And up until now, it really has only been used very well with Druid, because Druid has Scale of Onyxia to fuel it up and things. And of course now with Death Knight there's another class that can use it quite well, really. And Druid now also has Astalor combos that they can start using to make it work. So at this point, Sire Denathrius can get a bit worse, and so the infuse is happening every second minion as opposed to every time a minion dies, it goes up 1 damage. So it's probably a reasonable nerf, and in the 24 or so hours that we've had since the nerf, Sire Denathrius is still seeing play. I cut it from my Death Knight deck and then added it back to my Death Knight deck. So I think that's probably fine and reasonable. Like, when you have a nerf and the card is still seeing some play, probably the correct nerf. Now, Shockspitter. This is one where I've seen people complain that, oh, aggro is good for 10 seconds and suddenly they nerf it. Well, look, Shockspitter is not being nerfed for whatever it did in aggro decks, which I'm sure was fair and reasonable and completely above board. No, the Shockspitter combo deck was kind of egregious. Now, there's nothing wrong with combo decks. Don't get me wrong, I quite enjoy them. But the way that deck worked was like, I'm going to have a weapon on turn 1, please. Just on turn 1, if I can. If I have to coin it out, I will. And then I'm going to go face with it, probably. I mean, you know, if it's a Bloodseeker and I get to, you know, honorably kill a minion and I get some extra durability, sure, I'll do that too. But like, I'm going to go face with it. You've got some minions there, that's very nice. I'm going to ignore them because they may come in handy for me later, not for you, for me. And then at some point, after I've played weapon after weapon and gone face with the weapons as much as I can, my Shockspitter is going to be dealing 6, maybe 7 damage, and I'm going to play a Shockspitter on you. And then I'm going to play a Devouring Swarm. That's when my Shockspitter runs into your minion, dies, comes back to my hand. I play a Shockspitter again. That seems good for me. Maybe I play Brand Bronzebeard and the Shockspitter happens twice. And because the weapon's been going face the whole time, you're basically dead. And the problem with this, of course, is that approach of gameplay is like, I'm just going to ignore you and just go face the whole time. It's not necessarily aggro. I mean, it is, I know what some people think aggro decks do, but it's a little undesirable and it was just a little too efficient at it. And on top of that, slower decks, which can often include Death Knight decks, and you know, you don't necessarily want the newest class to be targeted like this. You know, you give them all the time in the world to get their Shockspitter attack up really high. It's like, you know, my Shockspitter does 11 damage. How much health are you on? The Death Knight's like, I am a Death Knight, Blood Death Knight. I am on 55 health. And Shockspitter deck goes, not good enough. And they're dead. So Shockspitter going to 3 mana makes it a bit harder to pull off those big turns where you're playing a lot of Shockspittery stuff. And in the last 24 hours, I haven't really seen any Shockspitter. So that was probably a reasonable nerf and it's doing what it's meant to do. So that's pretty cool. I guess we'll see what this means for the metagame. I mean, we've only really had March of the Lich King for 3 or 4 days as it is. But we'll see over the next week how the metagame shakes up without those cards being as powerful as they were and what that means for the World Championships. So until next time, you're all absolute legends and I love you all. I did the kiss. Oh.